I earned over $100,000 a month in commission as a salesperson, selling $1.12 million a month in cash collected. I then trained the sales team at Alex Hormozi's old gym launch, which was sold for $46 million, and a number of other sales teams doing multiple millions of dollars per month in cash collected. And I have formulated 10 rules to sell that, if followed, win a deal, and if broken, lose a deal and flush your commission check down the toilet. These rules will help you make more money, make selling easier for you, make selling more enjoyable, and help you understand what you need to work on as a salesperson. But if you can't sit and listen for 15 minutes to all this knowledge that I am going to give you for free, then I'm afraid you are not going to make it. So there is 10 rules to sales that span the length and breadth of who you are as a salesperson, your environment as a salesperson, and what you do on sales calls. And they are equally unbreakable, as they each cover a different aspect of how to sell. The final 5 rules in the second half of this video, if you don't know them, you can apply all the bits I'm going to teach you at the beginning, and you will still lose sales from breaking the other rules. To sell at a high level, you have to have the whole complete picture. So the first thing I want to teach you about is, how do you construct a set of rules? Well, I want you to think of it like an ecosystem. You could have an animal ecosystem. You've got the trees, you've got the animals, you've got the climate, you've got the ground, the soil, what type of soil it is, the nutrients in the soil. Everything in the ecosystem is equally contributing to the success of the whole ecosystem. And within those different pieces, there is rules, there is relationships that are founded on rules, such as you have a food chain and the animal at the top eats the animal below, and so on and so forth. Everything follows rules. And when you create a set of rules, you have to first know what are all the different pieces in the ecosystem, and then create a rule for each of those pieces so that they can all work together, and you now have an ecosystem that is going to make success inevitable for you. And so a rule, to just keep it very simple, is simply a way of doing things. So we have our ecosystem. We're going to have all the pieces of the ecosystem. We're going to call it a selling ecosystem. And then we're going to have a way of doing things for each of those pieces. So within these 10 rules for selling, the first 5 are before the call actually starts. So everything up until the first word comes out of your mouth when you turn on the Zoom call or you pick up the phone and call your lead. The second 5 rules are everything that is now happening within the interaction. So within our ecosystem, we can draw a line down the middle and say we've got rules before the call begins, and we've got rules once the call actually begins. But all of those rules are going to make or break your success as a salesperson. So the first 5 rules that are before the call actually starts, if we think of our ecosystem, you've got the animals, you've got birds and snakes, and then you've got trees and plants, and you've got the soil, and you've got the climate. Those are all our pieces. So before the call actually starts, if you think about it, what are the core pieces that are going to be a part of our selling ecosystem? Well, there is you. There is your perspective on selling as an industry, as a profession. There is your emotions, how you actually show up. There is your selling environment, so where you sit down and take your calls. And then there is your life environment, which is the broader environment that you are in as the salesperson about to engage in the activity of selling. On the other 5 rules that are once the call starts, we have leads, we have our frame, we have our process, so how do we do sales? We have the outcomes that come out of our process. So what are we actually getting as far as outcomes within a sales call? And then finally, we have the final act of closing. So those are the core pieces for once the sales call has begun and the previous 5 are the core pieces for before the sales call begins. So let's crack into the rules. Now, as we go through these first rules, I want you to ask yourself one question. Am I losing sales? If you break any of these rules, especially if you break more than one of them, you are going to be losing a significant amount of sales, which is money that instead of passing from the prospect's hands to your hands and your bank account is just staying in the prospect's hands. They don't buy, or they actually give that money to another salesperson that didn't break these rules. So as we're going through these rules, ask yourself, am I losing sales by breaking these rules? And if you want to grab a sheet of paper or your iPhone, you want to make notes, I would open up the notes app on your phone, or if you have paper to hand, and start writing down which pieces from this ecosystem you are breaking the rules, because those are things that you're going to have to start working on if you're no longer willing to keep losing sales. Rule number 1, be the person your prospects are aspiring to be. I'll say that again. Be the person your prospects are aspiring to be. So what do we mean by this, and why is it so important? Well, who you are in life is going to create your reality. We're not going to go too deep down the rabbit hole of quantum physics, but if you do a little bit of digging, you will find that the experiences that we have in life are going to be a reflection of who we are. And so if you want better prospects, then you should be a better prospect yourself when you buy things. If you want prospects that are more decisive, you should be a more decisive person in your life. If you want people to get out of their fear and comfort zone and invest in themselves, then you should be doing that in your own life. So the first reason you want to be the person your prospects are aspiring to be is so that you create a better reality for yourself as a salesperson. The second reason that that is so important is when you turn up to the sales call, your prospect can feel, they might feel it unconsciously, they might feel it consciously, what type of person you are. They can feel, are you a leader? They can feel, are you someone that has your life together? They can feel, are you someone that is living your life congruently with the requests that you're making them as a prospect to take action on things and to not let their fear run their decisions? People can feel that. Now, some people might not have the articulation or the emotional intelligence to be able to explain it to you and say, hey, you salesperson, I don't believe in you. I just think you're a fraud. I think you're a fake. I think you're a scam artist. They probably won't say that, very rarely, and they often can't even comprehend it, but they feel something. You've ever been in a situation, you just have a gut feeling? Often that's right. And so to make your entire selling ecosystem more prosperous and more profitable for you, you need to start being the person that your prospects aspire to be. When you turn up to a sales call and your prospect can see, hear, feel, sense that you are a leader, you are decisive, you're an action taker, you're someone that pursues relentlessly the goals that you have in your life, they look at you and they think, I want to be like this person that is selling me. So whatever they're selling me, that is a step closer towards them. I'm going to take that step because if I get closer to somebody or something that I think is what I'm looking to be, what I'm aspiring to be like, I'm moving in the right direction. The reciprocal is also true, vice versa. If the prospect shows up to the sales call and thinks, yeah, this person just seems like a loser. This person seems boring. This person is fumbling over their words. They're going to look at you and think, I want to get away from this person. I do not want to step into alignment with this person. So remember, your reality is going to be created by the person that you are. And the prospects you get are going to be a reflection of who you are. So if you want good prospects, start making good decisions in your own life. Secondly, as you turn up to the call, your prospects are going to start having a first impression of who you are. And they'll feel it, whether comprehensible or inexplicable. They will sense, are you the type of person that they want to get closer to and align themselves with and take action on something that you're selling? Or are you the type of person that they want to run a mile from? So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, enjoy selling. This one is massive. I see so many salespeople flushing commission down the toilet because they turn up to their day of selling and they don't want to be there. They see selling as a means to an end. They see selling as something that's disingenuous or it's inauthentic. Now, it can be if you're selling in an inauthentic way, and we'll get into the process later on in this conversation. But selling as a profession is not good or bad. What you do with it and how you think about it and how you feel about it and how you approach selling as a profession is going to determine the experience that you have as a selling professional. So if you want to make more money, if you want to close more deals, actually start looking at selling as something that you enjoy. Now, you might be saying, how do I do that? Well, if you really do some self-reflection and you inquire within yourself, what would be the best life you can live? Probably after the fast car and the watch and all of the superficial materialistic things, probably what you want is to have an impact. Am I right? After all the superficial things, you want to have meaning in your life. You want to have purpose. You want your life to have meant something. You want to know that when you leave this planet and go wherever you believe you go, you've left a dent. You've left a mark. You are living on eternally. You have the sorcerer's stone that allows you to live on through the lives of the people that you've helped. Selling is, aside from business, selling and business are the two best professions to have an impact. And so you need to get yourself into a place where you see selling as something that you can enjoy because of what you're doing, contributing to the world. The other way, and this is something I teach inside my Unicorn Closer Mastermind alongside my mentor who instilled this into me, is if you view selling as a professional athlete views their sport, you view the sport, or in this case, the profession of selling, as a vehicle for you to become the best version of yourself. And when you see selling like that, it is enjoyable. Even the bad days are enjoyable. The challenges are enjoyable. The difficulties are enjoyable. The prospect that hangs up and frustrates you and you think, oh, I'm going to work on my frustration to be less reactive. All of those things become something that you enjoy because they now have a higher meaning, which is becoming the best version of yourself and having an impact in the world. So don't be like most salespeople and lose deals, not because you said the wrong thing or you had the wrong tonality or you had the wrong sales process, just losing deals because the prospect can feel and you're projecting into your reality, you don't want to be there. You're actually turning up to the call, and before the call begins, you're thinking, oh, selling, that job that I have, that career that I have to do because I need to make more money. If that's how you view selling, always just this lesser evil than just sitting on the couch and being a couch potato, you're never, ever, ever going to go very far. So always decide, if you want to make as much money as possible, have an impact, become the best version of yourself, you have to go all in on enjoying the profession of selling and helping people in the process. Rule number 3, act in a professional way at all times. Oh boy, the amount of times that I see salespeople lose a deal because they do not act professionally. I'll give you some examples. They get emotional, they get reactive, they get judgmental towards the prospect. They start getting biased and they're trying to swing and sway the prospect to make a decision because they're biased. You've probably heard before that one of the frames that you can use as a salesperson is the doctor frame. A doctor is supposed to be professional at all times. Their diagnosis and their prescription is not from an emotional state or a reactive state or a biased state or a judgmental state that you're a bad person because you've got overweight and then now you've got high cholesterol and you're at risk of a heart attack, or you're a bad person because you've been smoking the cigarettes. A doctor is supposed to do what's right, but not judge you in the process. And if you're being a difficult patient, they're not supposed to get emotional. They're not supposed to get reactive. I bet that if you audit the calls, the deals that you lost over the last 6, 12, 18 months, more of those deals would have been lost because you were not showing up as a professional. You were getting emotional, getting reactive, judging the prospect, being biased and trying to sway the conversation. So one of the core fundamental rules as a salesperson is at all times, Act in a professional way, all times. No circumstance do you act like a child, do you act like a dictator, do you act like someone's parent. You act as an impartial professional that stays cool, calm, level-headed, and collected, and just diagnoses the prospect and then offers them the prescriptions that you recommend. So always, 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 if you want to make a lot of money, follow this rule. Act in a professional way at all times. Rule number 4, if you've done a little bit of personal development reading, you may have come across a book called Indistractable by Neil Eyre. Rule number 4, be indistractable, both internally and externally. So what does that mean? Well, I'm sure you know what being distractible means. You turn up to the call, you know you need to be present with the prospect, but you start thinking about something else. Thinking about Instagram or Facebook or your girlfriend or WhatsApp or your text messages or your phone or your Google Calendar or something else that's in your mind. You must follow the rule of when it's game time, be indistractable. So I have 2 recommendations for you. When you turn up to the call, do not have your mobile telephone in the same room, not on your desk, not even in the same room. I found as a full-time salesperson that when I put my phone in a different room, after 5 or 10 minutes, I would forget about my phone. I would stop thinking those repetitive, obsessive thoughts of needing to go back on social media or emails or responding to Slack messages or whatever internal communications channel that you use on your sales team. Put your phone in another room. And then when you sit down to open up the Zoom call or start the telephone call with your prospect, you are now indistractable. You have nothing else that you can focus on but the prospect as far as your external environment. But I also said be indistractable internally. So internally, you can be distracted by a number of other things. It could be your to-do list. It could be conversations that you need to have. It could be Slack messages in your communications channel. But whatever there is that's in your mind, not your physical world, which is most probably your phone, but in your internal world, you have all of these thoughts, all of these things that are unresolved. My recommendation is just get a very simple notepad. Very, very simple. Write them down. Leave the notepad on the side of your desk. Now, yes, do not put the notepad in another room. You're welcome to try it, but I have tested out both of these. If my phone is on my desk, my mind is looking and thinking and feeling the phone right next to me and I want to play with it. If I put the notepad in a different room, the thoughts come back in my head and I'm thinking, oh, I need to remember that. I need to remember the thing to do that I didn't do that I need to do. But if I keep the notepad next to me and a pen on the notepad, it feels like, oh, my unfinished business is just here. I can keep an eye on it. It's kind of like a young child. You do not take the child and just put them somewhere else and you think, I don't know what they're doing. Put your to-do list right next to you with a pen. Write down anything that needs doing before you start your day as a salesperson. If you think of something in between calls, write it down and deal with it after. Because when you're on the sales call, if you are distracted physically or mentally from anything other than being 100% present with the prospect, you will not have the abilities that you normally have. You will not have the resourceful state that allows you to think of the right question or say the right thing or tune into the prospect and understand them and help them get clarity to make the best decision, and that may be to close them. Also, your prospect will feel that you're listening, but you're not really listening. You ever heard that saying, the lights are on, but nobody's home? Prospects can feel that. Prospects can feel it just on an audio phone call, but even more so on a video call. And they can see you're looking at them, but you're kind of like eyes are glazing over. You're looking at them on the Zoom call, but your mind is, where's the telephone? Your other side of your mind is, oh, the to-do list. I have to do things. I've got other stuff I need to do. I'm trying to pretend I'm listening to the prospect, but really my mind is in another reality. So that rule, be indistractable, both internally and externally. Rule number 5, this is about your life as a salesperson. My mentor taught me from day one, And one of the biggest reasons I think that I went from $0 to earning $100,000 a month in commission in such a short period of time, I did that in 18 months with no previous sales experience, was because I had a mentor. And my mentor taught me that there is no divide between your sales, your selling profession, what you're doing on the phones, and the other parts of your life. There is not this easy ability to compartmentalize and keep things separate as a salesperson. And so he taught me that my life must also start upgrading. I must put my life in order. And so the rule number 5, is put your life in order. If you have issues with your parents, with your family, with your friends, with your significant other, if you have issues with unpaid bills and debts, if you have issues with an untidy home or a workstation, if you have issues with your relationship to God or spirit, or you're having an existential crisis, or your hormones are out of whack, or you're not physically exercising, or you don't have goals, or you don't have a routine, any of these things are going to have a positive or a negative effect on your life as a salesperson, even though they don't directly have anything to do with sales. But there is no line of, oh, that's nothing to do with selling, and that is everything to do with selling. As a salesperson, everything matters. And that is why inside the Unicorn Closer Mastermind that I run alongside my mentor, we do an equal amount of development of who you are as a person as we do developing what you do as a salesperson tactically and energetically on the sales call, understanding the prospects. It is equally weighted. The things in your life that are not directly related to sales and the things in your life that are obviously selling related. So you have to start putting your life in order. You will know, watching this video, watching me, you will know, there is one thing that I've kind of let go awry in my life. Could be your relationship with your significant other. Could be that you haven't been staying in shape. Whatever it is, don't leave it any longer. Don't be that person that puts off to tomorrow what you should be doing today, because that tomorrow becomes next week and next month and next year. And it often never, ever, ever happens. And even if it does happen in 6 months' time, I guarantee you that every single day between now and when you actually take action on solving that part of your life, you are losing money that you could be making, because all of these other areas in our life as a salesperson have a direct impact on how well we do in sales. I also learned this from Jordan Peterson, who has a talk where he's talking about his life as a clinical psychologist. And somebody comes into his practice and asks him, well, where does the line end between me and what is not me? And Jordan Peterson says, well, anything that's in your experience, in your reality, is an extension of you. So when you look at the pile of laundry in your house that is not taken care of, and you think, well, that's the pile of laundry and this is me as the salesperson. No, that is you. You are that messy pile of laundry. You are that person that hasn't resolved your marriage issues or your relationship issues. You are that person that hasn't got your body into good shape and is unhealthy and is overweight and is doing the wrong things as far as your daily habits. All of those things are who you are. And so your external environment within your life as a salesperson, put your life in order. That is rule number 5. All right, we're now into the second half of the 10 rules. So these are the 5 rules that are once the call has actually started. So the first rule, just as the call starts, is your leads. What rule can we have for our leads? We can't control the leads. That's the marketing's job. Correct. We cannot force more leads into our pipeline. We cannot change the quality of the leads. That is for marketing. But what we can change is how we perceive the leads. I'm sure you've been a salesperson. I know I'm guilty of it, where at some point in your selling career, you blame the leads. Now, we're not going to get into the cheesy, cliche conversation of me saying, it's not the leads. All I can say right now is if you have one rule for your leads, this is the golden rule. Every prospect who turns up to a sales call has a problem they want to solve. Now the specifics are turning up to a sales call. So if you're doing outbound dialing, if they stay on the phone with you, that means they've got a problem to solve, or they're just the 1 in a million person that doesn't know how to say, hey, I need to go, or just press the hang up button, even if they feel uncomfortable doing that. If somebody is talking to you, especially if they've turned up to a booked call, they have a problem and they want to solve it. People don't just waste their time. As humans, we conserve our energy. We conserve our time as well. We're not going to book in a 1-hour call, turn up to the 1-hour call if we don't have a problem we want to actually solve. Now, sure, some people are more committed from the get-go. Some people are more determined. Some people need more help on the sales call. Some people need less. But whatever happens, do not be a salesperson that gets into the mindset with your leads of, these are bad leads. This person didn't have a problem. This person wasn't qualified. Now, I understand as a salesperson myself, at the end of the call, you might find out they just can't do it. They can't access credit. They can't get financing. They can't borrow the money. There's just no way they can do it. But don't come into the sales call, starting the sales call with the mindset that some leads are bad leads and some leads are good leads. As a rule that is going to help you make more money, have the rule that every prospect who turns up to a sales call has a problem they want to solve. And watch what happens. You'll start getting better leads. You'll start probably getting more leads that turn up. You'll start getting better leads. You'll start getting more leads that turn up. You'll find that the conversations become more natural. They become easier. Why is that? Well, as I was saying before, if you study a little bit of quantum physics, you realize all the secret and the law of attraction and all of that, you find very quickly that our reality is a reflection of our beliefs. We are actually projecting our reality into existence. So if you believe the reality that every prospect that turns up to a call has a problem that they want to solve, you now create an easier conversation because you're coming into that conversation to help and to serve, as opposed to coming into that conversation combative, reactive, frustrated, annoyed, feel like you're wasting your time with these prospects that aren't qualified. Always follow the rule when it comes to your leads of believing that every prospect who turns up to a call has a problem they want to solve. Next, we have your frame. So this is rule number 7. What do we mean by frame? Frame is very simply the lens at which we're looking at things. And so we can look at something as good, we can look at something as bad, we can look at something as important, we can look at something else as unimportant. Our meanings and our values, how we rank things, the hierarchy that we see things as far as meaning and value and perspective is the frame. And so when we're talking about a sales call, your frame is going to determine what actions, behaviors you take. If you have a bad frame, you will take the wrong actions. I'll give you an example. If you have the frame that you're there to force the prospect to make a decision, or even to get a close on every prospect, you will start doing the wrong things. What you do want to do is have the right frame that allows you to instinctively do the right things. So what are the 2 most common wrong frames that salespeople get into? And then that will help you understand the rule. The wrong frame is they're too dictator, and they just try and bash the prospect over the head to make a decision. You're a loser if you don't do this. You're weak. You're a bad person. You're letting your children down, blah, 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 blah. And they're just trying to attack the prospect to make a decision. But on the other side, I have seen more salespeople lose deals because they're too soft. The prospect is scared or worried about things, and they're stuck in their own head, overthinking, and they end up being indecisive. And most salespeople, they actually lose deals because they're too soft. And so how do you take both of these extremes and not have a frame that's too extreme in either direction, but one that can swing to both ends of the spectrum as and when needed? How you do that is you create a frame by using a rule that is attached to the right thing, not the wrong thing. So the wrong thing is being attached to your ego. I want to beat the salesperson so that I feel good that I won the sale. Or attached to the sale, attached to the money, attached to getting the deal. If you're attached to any of that, even if you are being too soft, or even if you are being too harsh, even if you're being too soft, or even if you're being too direct, Your frame is going to make everything feel with an icky taste in the prospect's mouth. What you need to do is have this frame. Be very attached to what is right, but be very unattached to what happens. I'll say it again. Be very attached to what is right, but be very unattached to what happens. And so what that means is if I'm on a sales call and I know the right thing for this person to do is to take action, because if not, the lack of leads in their business, which is causing them to be in a financial tough spot, is causing their children to be potentially taken out of private school and put into public school, which is going to give them a worse education, as an example. If I'm very attached to what's right, I'm going to push hard on the prospect. But because my frame is like the doctor, I'm doing this because it's what's right. Not because I need the sale or I want the sale or I want to beat you, Mr. Prospect, but just because it's what's right. I'm going to have the grit and the drive and the determination and the commitment and the certainty and the conviction to push at the prospect. This is what you need to do. If you want to help your children, this is what you have to do. And you're going to push and push and push, but the feeling to the prospect is not going to be negative or salesy or icky or make them feel like you just want something from them. It actually is going to feel to the prospect that you want to give something to them. You want them to borrow your conviction. You want them to borrow your certainty. And so how you do that is you must have a rule for your frame. I could have just said, don't be attached to the outcome. Don't be attached to the sale. Well, that is true, but then what are you attached to? You have to be attached to what's right, because remember, most salespeople lose the sale in regards to their frame because they're too soft. They're not attached to anything. They've heard the old phrase of be detached, be unattached to the sale or to the close or to your commission. Don't have commission breath. That's very true, but if you're not attached to anything, when the going gets tough and there's a bit of friction and the prospect's struggling to make the right decision, you don't have any strength behind you. It's just like, and you as the salesperson just fall down. There's a moment of resistance from the prospect, and you don't have any fuel inside of you to push back. But that fuel has to be healthy fuel, not bad fuel. It's like eating. You can get your fuel from sugar, unhealthy sugar, unnatural sugar, refined sugars, or you can get your fuel from healthy food. It's fuel either way, but it's going to make things feel very different in how your body works or how the sales call is working as far as what type of fuel it's running on. The conversation is running on the fuel of the frame. So the frame to have is to be very attached to what's right so that you can push, but be very unattached to what happens. Rule number 8 is your process. We're not going to get into whether you should do objection handling as your core training for your process, whether you should use a script, whether you shouldn't use a script. I have another video that's on scriptless selling. If that is something that you're interested in, you can click the other video and I'll take you through all of the details on what is selling without a script, what are the advantages of doing that, and then how you actually start selling with a script. But this is not that video. This is just simply saying, in regards to how I run a process in the sales call, not do I bring my script with me or do I throw the script in the bin and just have a natural conversation. What am I doing on the sales call? There is one thing that you must do on the sales call. Do you know what it is? The basics. The basic fundamentals. You need to know the problem. You need to know the impact of the problem. You need to know the person's beliefs and their mental models and their mind viruses and pre-handle all of that. You do not need to do some advanced NLP or some reframing or some complicated analogy or memorized word track or some upside down handstand that now the prospect thinks, oh my God, this person's really cool and I've had this great rapport or anything advanced. You do not need to do anything advanced. But what I find all the time with salespeople, and I saw this with Gym Launch, I see this with sales teams that were doing multiple millions of dollars a month, but they ended up being able to do a lot more than that. And salespeople that come to me and want training, before this gets handled, they have replaced the basics for all of these advanced tactics. And the advanced tactics can sometimes work as a cherry on top of the cake, but they will not work at the level that they should if you're missing the basics. You must stick to the basics. And I know that sounds so obvious, but you, as a salesperson, if you are honest with yourself, you are not sticking to the basics on every call. You are missing clarifying the problem. You're missing having an authentic conversation. You're missing being fully present. You're missing probing on different words or phrases that the prospect says. You're missing some of these basics. And so the rule is consistently apply the basic fundamentals. Don't worry about advanced tactics. I'll say it again. Consistently apply the basic fundamentals. Don't worry about advanced tactics. If you replace your basics for advanced tactics, you are not closing at the level that you could. You are not making the money that you could. Now, I've mentioned my mastermind a few times. It's important that you know that as someone that's trained salespeople in some of the largest sales organizations in the high ticket space, top sales teams that you'll have heard of, I see that a lot of salespeople never got taught the basic fundamentals correctly. Because when they come to me, or I do training one-on-one with sales teams, private clients, and I review their calls, I ask them, why did you not do this, something that's a basic fundamental? And they look at me with a blank face, like, oh, I didn't think about that, or I don't know how to do that, is sometimes the answer. If you feel like you didn't actually master the basics, because just being okay at the basics is not good enough. You need to have mastered the basics and consistently stay at a very high level of competency over the basics. And if you think that you may not understand what those basics are and you don't want to lose deals by not doing the basics, I recommend that you check out my Unicorn Closer Mastermind. There'll be a link above, below. You can go to the website and you can read the information there on what we teach inside the mastermind, because I have trained so many salespeople that have blown my mind that they didn't know the basics. They didn't know what they were. They didn't know how to implement them on a call. They weren't executing them consistently. And I was very fortunate that when I invested in a mentor, the very first day I got into sales, he taught me the right basics. And he is now the mentor to my mentees, my students. We both co-mentor all of the students inside of the Unicorn Closer Mastermind that we run together. And so if you're unsure if you've got those basics down, or you think that you've missed some or you haven't been taught them, then I highly recommend that you check out the mastermind, because this rule is make or break. If you do not hit the basics on every single call, you will not close the deal. Doesn't matter how incredible your word track was, or your reframe, or your analogy, or some wizardry advanced tactic that you did. If you miss the basics, you are flushing your commission down the toilet. All right, rule number 9. This is a rule for the outcomes on the call. So you know, as a salesperson, the outcomes that you're getting is the information out of the prospect. You're asking them questions, you're having a conversation. You need to get answers. You need to get data. What data are you getting? Salespeople make the mistake of gathering a lot of vague, foggy, or irrelevant information. What you need to gather is relevant, specific, actual, tangible information. So my mentor taught me this as gather brass tacks. If you don't know what a brass tack is, it's the little tack that you use to pin something in a soft board wall, and they're brass. They're physical. It's a tangible, physical thing that you could hold in your hands and you could collect them, and they've got weight. What a lot of prospects do is, if you looked at the transcript for their call, they've got this essay from the prospect, all the answers to the questions, but when you read it, you're like, what did they actually mean by that? For example, they said, I don't like my job, or I hate my job. And the closer says, okay, how long have you hated your job for? Well, when you actually look back at that, what exactly tangibly do they not like about their job? What it should have said, as an example, is, I hate having to do 6 hours a day of photocopying paperwork because it feels monotonous, like my life's not moving forward, blah, blah, blah. Now that is real information. And so when you're asking your questions on a sales call, ask yourself, am I just gathering vague information that doesn't have any meaning. And how I describe that is glass words. Glass is transparent, it's see-through, and that is how those words are. They're just words, but I'm just looking right through the words on the transcript because they don't actually create an image in my head of what does that actually mean. So when a prospect says, I hate my job, what is the image that you get in your head? It could be a number of images, because what you might think when someone says, I hate my job, you could have an image of a guy sat on the floor with his head in his hands crying in the bathroom at his office. I could have an image of a guy that's just kind of bored, twiddling his thumbs. It's not that bad. So the images that we create, the understanding that we create is based on, are you gathering glass words or are you gathering brass tacks? And so this rule is gather brass tacks, not glass words in your discovery. And you can check this by looking at your transcripts. You can go back through a call review, have a look at the transcript and look back through it and say, and you should highlight it. You can highlight it red, orange, yellow for bad, or green or blue for good. And you can highlight where have I just gathered a bunch of information that doesn't tangibly mean anything. Do not gather glass words. You can have a 40-minute discovery and find that you don't have a single brass tack. You haven't got any numbers, any data, any specifics, any realities, any examples of what the prospect is going through. And the reason that people buy is because they relive the experiences in full technicolor, very detailed, very accurate, very relevant, very specific in their mind, and they feel the emotions while they're living those experiences as they're telling you and think, I don't want to live this anymore. But if they're able to describe their situation using glass words, they don't go back to that situation. They're able to be detached from the situation. And if they're detached, they don't feel the depth of the guilt and the shame and the depression and the anxiety and the frustration of living the negative experience that they turned up to the call to actually resolve. So not only are you losing money if you gather glass words instead of brass tacks, but you're also not serving the prospect. They need to viscerally re-experience what they're going through, or describing the end goal, the reality that they want to create. If you're thinking, what about sales that are not as heavily based on pain or problem? Then you need to very detailed and specifically and intricately describe the future vision. Not just someone says, oh, I want to have a successful business and I want to leave a legacy and I want to have a big impact in the world. And you look at the transcript and you think, big business, impact, legacy. Oh, that's great. I've got all the information. No, I don't know what a legacy means or big business or impact. What does that actually mean? How would you describe an impact? For example, gathering brass tacks, impact could be, I've opened 3 schools in deprived areas of Africa, and we have 3,000 students that we've been able to put through education. I can visit those schools. We're teaching them this, this, and this. This is the size of the school. This is where it's going to be, etc., etc. Now, that is brass tacks. That is real, tangible things. So in your discovery, only gather brass tacks. Do not gather glass words. All right, we're at rule number 10. The rule of all rules, closing. That's what it's all about. That's when you help the prospect. That's when you get paid. So what is the rule for closing? Well, I'm sure you have tried to close people that you shouldn't be closing. I'm sure also you've closed people and then they've refunded, or they've got buyer's remorse and they've quit. I'm sure also that sometimes you've wanted to close someone, but you just haven't been able to figure out how to close them. Why is that? Well, you're not following the right rules when it comes to closing. So what is the rule? And then I'm going to explain it. The rule is only sell people who have a high likelihood of success. Now, success in what? Whatever it is they're trying to solve by enrolling in your program, product, or service. What determines if they have success? Well, it's the way they go into that engagement. Are they going in with clarity? Are they going in with enthusiasm? Are they going in with commitment? Are they going in with a vision, something that means something to them that's going to pull them forward? Are they going in with confidence that they can make it happen with the support that you're going to give them in the program or the service? If they don't have those things because they have limiting beliefs, or mind viruses or logistical constraints. They've got too many other things going on. If you bring that person into the program and somehow they actually enrolled, they're not going to do well. And that is a disservice to you. That is a disservice because they'll probably refund and you should have a conscience. It is a disservice to the prospect because they'll really struggle or they'll fail and now they've lost the money as well for the investment. And it is a disservice to your business owner, the offer owner, because they're going to be a nightmare client. They might leave a bad review. They might quit. They might want a refund, etc., etc. So you need to only sell people who have a high likelihood of success, which means through the discovery conversation, you're not just gathering data on what is their current situation that they want to move away from and what is the desired situation they want to move towards. You also are gathering data on what is the likelihood that they make that shift. So you need to understand their mental models, their life right now. If they got a supportive partner or an unsupportive partner, if they got a lifestyle that means they've got the hours to do it. Every single thing that crops up in the discovery that you think, that's a red flag. I don't think that's going to help this person be successful. You have to address it head on. This is also why the way I teach closers prevents you getting into objection battles. You don't have to do 20 minutes of objection handling because when you run a proper scriptless discovery and you're really concentrating and you're following these rules, you're so present and you're so unattached to the outcome, but very attached to what's right, that you actually uncover all of the truth, what's really going on. And if I find on a sales call, there are things that are not aligned for this person to have success, I have two options. I tell them and they say, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to have success if I don't fix my certainty or commitment or this limiting belief that's going to make it impossible for me to do something. I'll give you an example. We were doing our weekly live training inside the Unicorn Closer Mastermind, and we were doing an example of a fitness role play, so selling somebody to get into better shape. And the prospect was saying, I don't like healthy food. I don't like them. I don't like healthy food. And if you're selling fitness, one of the things you're going to have to do is stop eating junk food and start eating healthy food. So what did we do? To keep it short, we basically had a conversation with the prospect about, well, are you willing to eat healthy food to get the body you want? Or is that not something you're willing to do? And through the conversation, we had to get the prospect aligned that even though they don't like doing that, they're willing to do it consistently and promise themselves and us that they will stick to it so that they can get the goal that they want. If I'd have moved forward to enroll that person, knowing that they don't want to eat healthy food, but I'd manipulated them in some way to enroll, or even if the prospect had said, you know what, I don't want to eat healthy, but I want to get in shape. Here's the money. I want to do the program. You would have to say, hold on, I'm not willing to enroll you right now because right now you have a very limited likelihood of success. And here's why. Anybody that comes into this program to get the body they want understands that they need to eat healthy as one of the core components of the process to become in good shape, healthy, and get the body of your dreams. That is something that you are currently not aligned with because you say you don't like the food and it doesn't seem like you have been eating healthy or you're willing to eat healthy because you don't like it. And so at the moment, as far as bringing you into the program and you getting results, we don't have alignment. So that's how you would do that. And all this is based around the rule that you only sell people who have a high likelihood of success. And there's going to be only three camps. People that no matter what you do, they still don't step into a place psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, physically, where they're actually going to be likely to have success. You try your best and you have to just say, hey, I'm sorry, but we don't have alignment for these reasons and therefore there's nowhere further to go in this call. It doesn't happen very often if you know what you're doing, but it happens sometimes. The second camp is the people that are not aligned, and by going through realigning them with things, by discussing openly and honestly and upfront where the misalignments are and putting the mirror back on the prospect and saying, how do you feel you're going to hit these goals, if your fitness goals, if you don't eat healthily? They said, well, I'm not. do you want to change that, knowing that to do that, you're going to have to eat these foods consistently? And it's not just a thing you do now. You're going to have to continue eating those foods to maintain the body. Now, through all of those conversations, the prospect in the second camp chooses, not forced, not manipulated, not blackmailed, not heavy-handed sales objection handling. They choose by you holding the mirror up and inviting them to a new way of behaving. You know what? I want this, and I'm going to be aligned with what's going to make it likely for me to have success. That is the second camp. The third camp, you just go through your normal discovery process and they answer all of your questions on the data, and you're thinking, okay, I've got the data and they're aligned to having success, the way they're showing up as a person, their beliefs, their behaviors, their energy, their vibe even. I feel that they're going to have a high likelihood of success. And you have those three camps. But you never, ever, ever try and sell someone that is not in one of the other two camps. If they're in the first camp at any point, or if they're still in that camp by the end of the conversation, you don't sell them. And what's really cool is that when you do the right thing, which is I'm going to sell people only when they're aligned to have a high likelihood of success, by having the conversation through that lens of that's when I'm going to close, people feel that you're genuine. They feel that you're authentic. They feel like you wanted to ensure that they're going to be successful before taking their money. And that is something that is communicated, not just verbally, not with your tonality, but through the ether, through your energy, through your aura, that you're a good person that's trying to do what's right and ensure not only do you enroll the person, you take the money and you get a commission, but that they're going to have a high likelihood of success. So that is the 10 rules. And the final rule there for closing is only enroll people that have a high likelihood of success. And so in conclusion, you want to go through these 10 rules and you want to rank yourself 0 to 10. 10 being, I follow that rule perfectly at all times. Anything that is less than a 9 or a 10, needs serious work immediately if you want to make more money and you want to help more people and you want to close more deals and you want closing to become easier for you, more enjoyable, more natural. If you want to progress as a salesperson and you are breaking any of these rules more than once, you need to fix them. If that is something that you want help with doing, I can help you. If it's something you want to do on your own, you're welcome to do whatever you want to do to figure it out on your own. But those are the 10 rules that you need to sell. Those are the rules that I followed to go from $0 to earning $100,000 per month in commission and doing that within 18 months. I learned these rules by investing in a mentor. And now my mentor alongside me, we train these rules into closers so that they can live by these rules, follow these commandments consistently, and then have the life that they want by closing more people and earning more money. So I'll see you in the next video.